I'm joined by Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
It is so good to be here. Hello.
Now, last week we talked about sensory healthy resting as we continue our series of looking at sensory healthy something. It could be a venue, it could be a situation, an event. Last week, I like this. We looked at sensory healthy resting, which was really, I thought I really liked that one.
And I've taken on my own advice. I just had a moment this week where I thought, what? I mean, I just took more time to think than I normally would because when somebody asks you something, it does make you question, it does make you think, especially when you don't know the question is coming. And then I took, I mean, I have a Sunday that I set aside and I switch my phone off and it's focused. It's my rest day. It's my day set apart. But I was very much struck when it came to Monday morning that actually I don't want to do what I normally do, which is more of a relaxed Monday anyway. And I thought, what could today look like? How different could today actually be? And I allowed myself, I gave myself the permission to sit and just be. And I've realized a lot of my rest and my restoration and my refreshing is that complete removal of sensory input. But then, funnily enough, surprisingly enough, it was absolutely what I instinctively said the week before, which was about needing to get out. And I went to the high places. I went up and walked. Jersey's not that well, we don't have any mountains. It is a bit hilly, but I went up to one of our highest places in town. I was just walking and just went up there. And the sun was shining and it was beautiful and the wind was blowing and it was just a really 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 lovely time. So I think it's just a reinforcement actually. Yeah, just even even me, just think again. Take time to really consider how good it is for your soul, your spirit, your body, your mind, and your emotions to take some time away.
I think one of the interesting phrases you used then was, I gave my permission. So I gave myself permission to rest. And I think that is such a part of it. Okay, I've got to stop. When I was
Mm.
driving trucks, you get to 4.5 hours, you have to stop. You can't drive anymore. You are forced to have a 45-minute break. Then it got really stupidly complicated with the EU. At 6 hours of work time, you have to have a 30-minute break, which is really annoying because it just ruins your day. As much as it sounds great. And that's the thing. Sometimes forced rest periods, even when for the good intentions, you don't really rest because you're not really in a good place of being able to rest, which is why what you said, I think, is really critical here. It's giving yourself permission to rest and to stop. Um, I was thinking
Mm.
off the
And
back of
it's
a
really interesting coming on off the back of a
it's
I
a
think we
delay,
must have some internet issues because it's just like
weird
we've got a
delay.
bit of a delay going on and all kinds of things.
That's right, go for it.
On you go, sir.
Oh, okay. Right. So I was just thinking about as a family, like what does a Sabbath look like for us? Because the Sabbath is a very religious word. It just means the seventh day. It's the day of rest in a working week. You go back 50 years, it was dead easy. Sunday, you go to church on a Sunday morning. That's what you do. Pretty much everybody accepted that was the way, that's what you do. Today, it's very different. If you work in ministry full time, which we used to do and still do in a different context, Sundays aren't your day of rest anymore because if you're a vicar or working in a church, your Sunday, absolutely the busiest day of your entire week. And you could do with a 5-day weekend after that. And so that Sabbath rest has to be different, which is why it's so important that we don't say, well, this is what you must do, because coming back to what you said, you need to give yourself permission to rest. And that is always going to be slightly different. Let's just take dairy farmers, which is a classic example. There's always that thing around that the Sunday morning church services because of the dairy farmers, milk the cows, go to church, go back to the farm. Well, possibly, possibly not. But actually, we do need to give ourselves permission to rest, and it isn't going to look the same for every single one of us.
No, no, absolutely not. And there's a difference between having also a day set apart from a worship perspective and holiness perspective, and then also then a time to rest. And we could potentially split those two as well. so that there's always the extra element that feeds you spiritually, and then there's another time where it really does feed the soul. It very much is about your sensory health. It very much is about restoring we talk about the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight, flight, fright. It's that action. If somebody comes up and touches you unexpectedly, you're put on alert. If you're in a dark place, in a place that you're not known, you are more alert because you're cautious that you may need to run. If something happens, if somebody comes out of the shadows, you're going to want to be tempting to run or to fight back. So that's your sympathetic nervous system. And then you've got your parasympathetic nervous system that calms everything, that brings it back to rest and restoration, because too much of the cortisol and the adrenaline that's set off by the sympathetic nervous system is not good for our body long term. For short term, it is absolutely brilliant. But long term, we need the parasympathetic system to bring our nervous systems into some form of regulated and happy and content state, and have time to metabolize and eat up and take away all of those stress hormones. So that is where sensory health practices can really help bring that time of rest. And that can be then throughout the week. There's times that when people can't get to sleep at night, we need to have time to enable the body and the brain to regulate and come back down to a place where it can sleep. There are times during the day, if you're full on, you'll come back from work absolutely shattered. You'll come back from school, the kids absolutely shattered. If we don't have those moments of rest, those moments of just pausing, allowing the parasympathetic nervous system to calm what's going on. Otherwise, we're boom, 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 on the go all the time. And that's not the healthiest, I would suggest, not the healthiest state to be in.
So I was thinking more about the whole resting thing and how it's going to look different for each of us. I'm using an example of a full-time vicar because, of course, they're going to be really, really busy on a Sunday morning. So that's not their time of rest. So we've mentioned this before. They're probably going to take a day off in the week. As a family, we work 6 days a week. Saturday's our day off. Sundays are very busy. We're working from 12 o'clock through to 8, 10 o'clock most Sundays because we have a different day of rest. And that's the thing. Whatever your day is going to be different from someone else's. There might be a general rule of thumb that you tend to have a Sunday off, but of course that's changed. I remember going for some trucking jobs, and Monday to Friday was a day rate. Saturday was perhaps time and a half, Sunday double time. And then you're going for jobs and they're saying, well, we work 5 days, Thursday through till 5 days later. So the weekend isn't a weekend. So we're going to pay you a flat rate for that instead. And I remember saying, I'm out of the office and I was gone because they're trying to take away the rest period generally for most of us. But the idea of resting, we need to mix the bit that you're saying about stopping and pausing and just allowing things to stop around us. But we also need to do active stuff as well. One of the things as a family that we're really loving is working really, really hard on our day off by not doing ministry stuff and radio and magazine, but we're in the garden instead, doing mowing and trimming and weeding. And it's really hard work, but it's a good hard work. And every so often you sit down in the garden and you enjoy the trees and the birds and all the rest of it. And I think we are finally, after 2 years, beginning to find a better way of actually resting in a situation where it's very hard to rest normally.
Yeah, yeah, and I think God, that's where gardening really comes into its own. And at some point, I keep saying to my family, I'm going to get into gardening, like the same way I might get into cooking someday. But rather than just functional feeding the family because we have to, and it's quick and it's easy. So gardening is huge from a sensory health perspective. I know we've touched on it before, but what it does for your body, your physical body's involved, your vestibular system's involved because you've got your head tilting, you've got your tactile system with the wind or the sun, the temperature, the sensations all going in there, and the sights and the sounds and the smells of the flowers and the bees. And every sense, and you might even be, your peas that are gorgeous when they're just out in the pod. That all the senses are involved in an absolutely beautiful way when gardening's involved. I'm sure that's why it's such a powerful, but also such a widely used activity and hobby, because it hits so many people on so many different levels. For goodness.
You heard it from Animal Jackson. Dirt on your hands is good.
And for those who are tactile overreactive, who really hate having things on their hands, just get the gloves. Just put the gloves on. Forget about what anybody else thinks. Get the gloves on and keep them on, and don't worry about it.
You see, I mean, we haven't got any bees really. We've got wasps. We haven't got anything like um, uh, flowers. We have loads of weeds and overgrown grass because before we moved in the house a year ago, it was completely derelict for years and hadn't been touched. So we've got grass at 4 and 5 feet tall. It's that bad. So at the moment, we're just trying to weed hack everything. I love that American term. We're weed hacking. Better than strimming, isn't it? We're weed hacking the garden to get that down. There's a bed of grass that we have to strim through because the mower has no chance, even though it's a big, heavy petrol thing. And then we're starting to get down to the soil. I saw soil yesterday, which was very exciting on a garden when you can't see because there's like 4 inches of grass. And there's a sense of satisfaction when you do a bit of mowing. I'm walking up and down. It's what? I think it's about 60 meters to the end of the garden. We're walking up and down with a mower, and then I'll sit down under the tree, have a drink, and there's a bit of work and a bit of rest. But the thing that I found really fascinating, which I wasn't necessarily thinking about going into today, is we work together as a family all the time. We literally there's 4 or 5 of us working all the time, and then we go in the garden and work together in different groupings, doing different stuff, and it's really pleasant in a different context.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that. I was what was I thinking the difference recently? The difference between group work and a family. Okay, a family is a group, but a family is much more of a team. You can be having group work uh, in a class, in an organization, in business, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a team. You can do, but when you're a family, there's something quite intimate and that's something quite profound about, yes, you're a group, you're always going to be a group, but you're always more than a group. You're never just individuals, part of a whole. Each of you are interconnected, and that's what makes family special rather than any other form of grouping. There is something quite unique and beautiful about family. And it's really great when you can get experiences and share experiences together, doing something different. And yet the uniqueness, especially about your family, because you are used to working well together, that you can apply that and take it and enjoy other activities at the same time.
Then we talked about the blade of death. So we have a petrol strimmer which has cable, okay, and you pull the cable out, it spins round, and it gets rid of the grass. We all understand that. It came with a blade of death, which we kept in the packaging and never touched because it's basically a metallic solid thing with properly like knife edges on it, really super sharp, so we can get through like proper brush and stuff, and small little twigs and whatever. And we decided, you know what, we're not getting anywhere with the string. We're going to put the blade of death on. That's just what we call it. So it took us a little bit of time. We attached it, and Nathan, who's my middle son, he's 20. He's been enjoying doing the strimming to some extent. It's nice, I think, to see we've done something, and there's a very immediate correlation between work and pleasure because you strim a foot square of grass and you've now got a foot square of grass gone. Okay, so there's an immediate, we've done something. But with the blade of death, we're making much better progress. When he started picking it up, and I need to be honest, I've worked with heavy machinery for a long time. Respect it, it'll respect you. It's that simple. And if you see somebody running, run faster. That was how I was taught, and I think it works. So he picked up the strimmer. It is petrol, so we've got a few more things to consider. It's very powerful. It now has the blade of death on it. And he was really nervous, but I taught him to respect it and to work with it. It vibrates. It's quite tiring. It gets switched off every so often. But now he's more comfortable with it, having been taught by me how to use heavy machinery that can kill you, and it could. Now he's using that. He's really comfortable. And now he's grinning, saying, I'm really enjoying this. Can I go and do some more? And, petrol runs out, more petrol, and off he goes again. And it's fascinating how we can be so scared of something until we try it and then realize as long as we respect it, all of a sudden it works quite well.
Mm. Mm-hmm. And I think there's lots of new things. I was thinking that about female football, the bizarre things that one crosses your mind. And I thought the number of things that, oh, that's right, there were some bricklayers. And I thought it is interesting that it isn't, it's very much, bricklaying really feeds the masculine body because of the amount of proprioceptive input it gives. It's a very heavy job, and it's really satisfying for men because you've got that bulk, because the way that your body's performing, basically, that it's much more satisfying for you, whereas it'd be a lot more exhausting for most of us females. Obviously, we've got some very strong ones and very capable ones, but it doesn't bring that. I don't think it brings the female the same satisfaction. And then I was challenging my thought, saying, well, is it because of a sensory perspective that we're just built differently, and therefore we feed into our muscles differently and our joints, and therefore it's great for you? There's a lot of pleasure that's brought from the men, but not so much from the women. Or is it literally that we've just never had the experience of it? And I thought, yeah, it's interesting the things that we have experience of and not. I mean, I think even though, I mean, I did personally do some bricklaying. I went to Panama with a church, and we were rebuilding a school. And yeah, I mean, I loved the creativity and the ability to line something up beautifully, but like the weight of it all, personally didn't appeal to me. But you just got me thinking there about the difference between the way that our sensory beings are and the way that we're made differently, but also then what exposure and experience does for you, and how it can lead you to different things that you've never even considered doing before. And it's important that we do have different experiences.
I tried to do some hoeing. A hoe is kind of how do you describe a hoe? Imagine a coat hanger that's much smaller that you stick on the ground, you shove it through the stones and it cuts the weeds and you can get the weeds out. Okay. That's a hoe. If that is a terrible description, sorry, you can go and search the internet. What is a hoe? HOE for gardening. Now, Jo seems to be really enjoying using the hoe because it's quite satisfying. She can clear a section of gravel, and when she's finished, there's no green weeds, it's just gravel. Stephen, interestingly, 21-year-old lad, he also enjoys using the hoe because he said, well, it's satisfying because when I've finished, I can do it in little pieces. I can do a minute of this. I can go and pick some stuff up. And there's loads of these different parts to just using a hoe to clear weeds. But when I've finished, it's good because there's something I can actually see that's satisfying because now there's a clear patch of gravel. And I think we've got the same thing with the garden. It's that satisfaction because a lot of what we do on radio, we don't see people listening. They might comment or say, yes, we listen to that show. We don't see them listening. So there's no direct engagement. Same with a magazine. It goes out and people love it. But with the garden, there's a satisfaction because when we've done it, we have an immediate sense of not just we have done it, but look, anybody else can see we've done it because look, there's less grass or there's less weeds.
Yeah, feedback is absolutely crucial. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm in a similar, completely different sphere to you, but a similar thing that a lot of my work is put out online, and a lot of the training is done. And I give it all to people and say, well, I'm here to come and talk to every week, but there's not a big proportion of people who actually do come and actually converse. They're busily getting on, they're watching, they're creating, they're making their life, they're assessing themselves, they're putting things into practice, they're busily getting on with what helps them, and completely unknown to me. And then all of a sudden somebody comes back and says, oh, that was amazing. Our life is so different to what it was last year. And I'm thinking, I'm really pleased. It would have been nice to be part of the journey, but that's only for myself. That's not for them. Ultimately, it's all about them. It's not, but yeah, immediate feedback is so good. And I think, yeah, if your life does not involve with have that immediate feedback, then find something like gardening, like art, like something where you can get that satisfaction, that immediate kind of like cause and effect, that I've caused this action to happen, whether it be in the garden or with a paintbrush, and I can see the effect of that. And there's an immediate, yeah, that was good, or hopefully not, or yeah, that's not, I'm not doing that again.
I'm going to label this one as sensory healthy living because I think that might work.
Yeah,
because it matters, doesn't it? We need to live. We need to live differently from other people. There are things that we need to do, but we're not all going to have the same life. For some people, the idea of going in a garden is just the worst possible ever thing, because we're having to mow through so many levels of grass. There's lots of dust and stuff in your face, which isn't very pleasant. No one likes that. But for some people, that would be too much to cope with. Jo was thinking, I can keep smelling bleach. What's that smell? I can smell bleach. None of us can. Turns out it could just be she's having a bit of an adverse reaction to hay fever. Well, that makes sense. We've got grass seeds being churned up in a mower and thrown up in the air into our faces. So, hey, that's quite a common side effect. So that's all fine. But we do need to find those things where we can rest. But resting has got to involve not just sitting doing nothing, which isn't necessarily healthy, but is a part of it, but actually doing something that enables us to be resting. which reminds me of the idea of waiting for your bride. The old fashioned wording of waiting for your bride is not sitting doing nothing, waiting for the wedding day. When a man will be waiting for his bride, he would be doing everything in his power to make sure that wedding day is going to have nothing to stop it from happening. That would be the old fashioned way of saying waiting for your bride. It's not a passive, it's a very, very active waiting. But I think there's an active resting that we've really got to get back to.
Yeah. And there was a really interesting thing when I walked into the kitchen yesterday. I was struck by a beautiful smell, and I stopped and I thought, what is that? And so I put it on the family WhatsApp group saying that, this is sweet, but it's soft. I mean, how do you describe a smell? And I thought, oh, where's our devices that can pick up a smell? It's just like, oh no, we haven't got one yet. So, but the sense really struck me, and I thought, what's happened? Because it wasn't a smell that that I was familiar with, but it was gorgeous, and it made me calm. I mean, I wasn't, I mean, I'm not an anxious person anyway, but it had a really lovely effect on me. I think also because I wasn't expecting it, but I'm not put off by unexpected things. I'm someone who really likes unexpected things, but this was a beautiful unexpected thing. And then we came in this morning, and then one of my sons said, "Oh, I was cleaning. I went out and got a new cleaner." And I said, "Oh, show me it." And it literally has a floor, a specific floral scent. It's one of these squirty things, and I'm used to, like, you smell bleach, or you smell your cleaner, and that's what it is. But goodness me, had they done this beautifully. I can't remember what it was, but I did take a photo of it and say, "It's all right, family. We found what it was." But I then started cleaning, which the family like, "Mum." It was because the experience of it all of a sudden just changed and became so much more pleasurable because of the smell, because of the sensory experience of doing it. I don't have a problem with cleaning. I don't like dust. I'm allergic to dust. It's a bit like your hay fever. Dusting is not. I just don't do it because it's not great. But this really got me cleaning and doing things just because the match was good. The match was right with my sensory needs and the type of what was being evoked by the smell itself.
And my understanding from all of our conversations, which I think is 79 now, is that the reason it was so particularly powerful is because the sense of smell bypasses all the stuff and goes straight to the brain. Kind of.
Woo! It does go straight into the limbic system through the olfactory nerve, through the olfactory bulb on the top of your nose.
I was going to say that, and I thought, if I get this wrong, I look like an idiot, which is normal, but I didn't want to get it too wrong. I had olfactory thing. I always think, because I wrote it down the first time you said it, I thought old factory. What's an old factory got to do with the brain? And it's OLE, old factory. But I stick a D in there by accident.
Yeah, take the E off. Yeah.
Right. Well, there you go. I just, it's important to live, but living is investing and it's working, and working is good. Working is very good. Being lazy is a bad thing. Working is a very, very good thing, but working needs to also include resting, which is doing nothing, resting, doing something that is restful, not your ordinary work. And that's on top of the whole Sabbath thing, which is just a religious way of saying Sunday day off. It's a day that you're supposed to give to God in a different context. But I tell you, the story it just reminded me of, there was an airline somewhere and they started leeching pilots. They were quitting. We're gone. Bye-bye. Why are you quitting? Well, we used to get a little break here and a little break there, and they've got rid of those little portions of time when we have a little bit extra break. And now they're saying that legally we cannot have to do those. We can just have a break here and we'll work from there to there and then there to there. And we're exhausted because there's no let up any longer. So all these pilots were leaving this particular airline, I think somewhere in the US, because they said, well, it's not like we were stealing breaks, but those little bits were just moments of calm and stopping. And when you took those out, yes, legally we might be able to, but you know what? We're also people, and no, we can't do that.
Really interesting. Really interesting that. Yeah. And yeah, the fact that people we're not designed to be on the go all the time. It's hard sometimes to think, well, why can't we? And actually, no, we can't. The whole thing about recharging a battery, the whole thing about recharging anything is that we are humans and we do need recharged.
Mobile phone design. Battery design. That's where we need to go. Richard Scott, who's on holiday at the moment, but he having retired. But we did a thing about the length of time you work before the productivity starts to tail off. There's been studies on this, okay? But I'm thinking,
Okay.
we're so tied to our phones, aren't we? We have to have our phones. We all want longer battery lives to last 10 weeks. No, what we need is a phone that lasts for 2 hours and takes 20 minutes to recharge. So then every 2 hours, you're having to stop and wait for your phone to recharge. You and I should go into truck design and battery design.
Oh, now that is that's sneaky, but wow,
Mm.
there. Oh, that gets the brain firing.
What's the
Hmm.
advice? If you're using a computer screen, was it an hour on or half an hour and 10 minutes off? There's like a ratio of how long you're staring at a computer screen before you need to go and look at anything else. Whoever does that? Well, you kind of should because it's actually there for a reason. It's a benefit. But yeah, if we could make mobile phones that had a really tiny short battery life, so you had to recharge it every hour or two when you're working, you'd stop. You'd definitely stop at that point, or buy lots of mobile phones that could, you could chain work, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. And how annoying would people get when they're in the middle of a conversation? Someone else has had their hour and they've stopped, and you're trying to have a conversation with them, but you can't because they start their hour differently to you.
You go and ring them. You can go and see them. There's a radical concept. Seeing people for conversations. I know we've talked about this more than once, but let me bring it in again. There was a council in the UK that had email free Friday, and they saw emails just dropping off because no one could literally send them, and productivity went up, morale went up. People were happier in the working environment because they're not answering an email that I was CC'd into that I don't even know who any of these people are, but I got CC'd into a conversation. Someone replied all, and now I've got 85 million replies to an email. I don't know what's going on. Email free Friday. There's a thing for you.
Wow, that's yeah, absolutely radical. It'll be fascinating. I think we should all keep trying different things. Just experiment with them and have fun. I love life that has a bit of fun to it, really. Mm.
Fun is a very, very good thing, and it is not overrated. It is good. It is important. Anne, thank you. If you want to connect with Anne and access any of the help that she can provide for you, go to our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ, and you can connect with Anne Lord Jackson and Sonte on Jersey and all that she does for you.
Wonderful. Thank you. See you next time.
Thanks, Anne.